Good morning.
Morning, Harry.
How you doing, Michael?
Excellent, thank you.
Good. Today we're coming to you live from the Murder Capital studio, where homicides are discussed and homicide investigations. Today, as promised, I brought in the man off the street, also known as Michael Cohen. Michael, introduce yourself. Say a few words to the people.
Hi, I'm Michael Cohen. I'm from metropolitan Detroit. I'm a car broker, and the way I met Harry was I sold him a vehicle. I found out he lived in Sarasota. I vacationed in Sarasota, so we hooked up and became friends.
That's correct. As a matter of fact, Michael is from Motor City, Detroit, Michigan. And I was looking around for my first Porsche. And Michael here happened to have one that he was advertising. He has several websites he advertises by. And he promoted this vehicle to me. Now, sight unseen, coming from Michigan, I met Michael first by telephone, and I was corresponding with him. When I finally got the car delivered here to me, I have to tell you, friends, it was more than what Michael portrayed it to be, and I was very, very pleased with it. I found him to be above reproach in his integrity and honesty. And as a result of my purchasing this car from him, we became friends that we are today. Matter of fact, we just recently went together to the Sarasota Coffee and Cars yesterday at the UTC Mall, which is always a great thing to do if you're ever in the neighborhood of Sarasota, Florida. But in any event, Michael is here today for a totally different reason than brokering a car sale. Michael is a man off the street. He became interested in the Murder Capital podcast concerning true homicide murder investigations. And I wanted to bring Michael in to get some of his responses of what his reactions were to some of the podcasts that he's listened to that were produced already. So Michael, you've had a chance to review some of my podcasts concerning the Murder Capital, correct?
Yes, I have.
Now, before you've done that, were you ever before interested in watching other podcasts that had murder or true detective stories, or was this the first time for you?
I didn't watch other podcasts, but I was always interested, and I think most people are, of murder mysteries, watching them on TV. Mm-hmm. My favorite movie of all time was The Godfather. So, you know, that aspect of entertainment, if you want to call it that.
I just started watching The Godfather yesterday until the family wanted to watch the Olympics and they shut it off on me. So. But at any rate, that's where I am at as well, watching movies like The Godfather and true crime. I like First 48, if you're interested. I don't like the fictional stories that are all over TV these days concerning homicide, especially, I guess, given the fact that I spent 15 years in the homicide division of the Camden County Prosecutor's Office. I spent a total of almost 30 years in law enforcement and another 20 years as a private detective after that. So my expertise became in homicide investigation. So, Michael, as you were listening to the podcast, did you find them interesting at all?
Oh, absolutely.
What drew your interest to them?
Well, initially, knowing you and knowing you were going to do these, I said, hey, I got to find out what Harry does.
So you got an inside look of some of the cases that I worked on.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to me that you were involved in so many, and you solved so many, and so many of these were gruesome, but they're reality. They were not fiction.
That's correct. They are exactly reality.
Yeah.
And I get chills as I say that to you, because in telling my stories, sometimes I think to myself, people aren't going to believe this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. People are not going to believe that this man was capable of doing this to another human being. But in fact, if you listen to my podcast in some of these cases, it's beyond belief of what people do to one another. I still can't figure it out. after spending almost 50 years in the law enforcement community, why people do what they do and how capable they are. You often hear the story of next door neighbor gets arrested for a gruesome murder. Oh my God, I would never think he would be capable of doing something like that. He's the nicest guy in the world. Well, from my experience, folks, people have it in them. You just don't see it every day. But when it comes out, not that all people have it, but when it do come out, it is very ugly, as you know from listening to my podcast. Did you find any one particular podcast interesting, most interesting to you as you were watching it?
I watched so many of them. The names at this point all get convoluted. They're all fascinating.
Let me refresh your memory. Maybe
Sure.
I hit a couple of buzz points for you.
Sure.
The very first podcast I did was a story I called The Chicken Hawk. Do you remember that case?
Yeah.
Where a 12-year-old boy had left his trailer park trailer home in the middle of the night and was taken into another trailer where a child sexual predator was living with his then young son.
Right.
And he was using his young boy to lure other boys to his trailer for the reason of getting them intoxicating and then sexually abusing them. Mm-hmm. That case was not my first child murder case. There was another case that I had, which was my very first homicide as a homicide detector, of the Broken Angel case, which is the baby Tamika Paulk, who was savagely murdered, but before she was murdered, she was savagely tortured by her mother's boyfriend, who wasn't supposed to be living in the property in the first place. You remember that case, the Broken Angel?
I do.
And how about this one, the Blood Trail to Nowhere?
Yes, I certainly remember that. That was a good one.
Are you familiar with that case?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's talk about that case a little bit. Before we get started, folks, I want to remind everyone that listener discretion is highly and strongly recommended due to the nature and content of the discussions and some of the photographs that you might see. So we're going to talk a little bit about Blood Trail to Nowhere. This was the homicide victim. Her name was Vanita Lewis, a 26-year-old black female. She was found upside down in this photograph, as you can see it, in a stairwell at the end of a string of apartments in the Hartford Arms Apartments in the suburban town of Runnymede, New Jersey. She was found dead in January of 1992. She was completely and totally naked except for a tan overcoat that was wrapped around her body but unbuttoned down the front. She had been bludgeoned to death. You can see here some of the wounds on her head, the bruising. She was strangled due to the petechial hemorrhage you can see in her whites of her eyeballs here. And she had an unknown item wrapped around her neck and draped across the opening of her mouth. There was a blood trail. You could follow this yellow tape and see she was down at the end of a stairwell at the end of these apartments, which goes to a laundry room. The blood trail started on top of the area of the laundry room and just went for a few feet and then disappeared right here. Now this particular body was found at approximately 8:45 a.m. on January the 21st, 1982. She was found by a woman walking her dog. Now, here's what you got, Michael. You are a brand new homicide detective.
Okay.
First day on the job as first out. I'm your partner.
Okay.
The training you've had is you went through the police academy. You have I'll just say you have some college. You were working towards your bachelor's degree in police science or law enforcement, take your pick. And you're ex-military, so you're a veteran. And you've been on a local police department for about 12 to 15 years. And you finally got a shot to work for the prosecutor's office and take an elevation to detective. And after spending 4 or 5 years in different units there, you eventually were inducted into the elite homicide division of the Camden County Prosecutor's Office. There, you worked under the tutelage of the already present homicide detectives in that you would go out with them on their particular cases for a few weeks or maybe more, maybe a month or more, depending on how many jobs came in. You would be given a box of solved and unsolved cases to review, to learn the paperwork and how it flows and what's required in a case. There's different documents that you need to apply for by mail and so forth. There's different protocol that you have to learn. And you're just in the learning stages of doing things. And finally they come to you one day, they tap you on the shoulder. They say, Michael, yes sir, job just came in, Runnymede, New Jersey. They got a body down at the bottom of the stairwell in the Hartford Arms Department. Meet the chief of police of the town out there. He's waiting for you. Yes, sir. You get in your car, you pick me up, and we head out to the scene. Now, here's what you got when you get there. Take a close look, Michael. You have a basically nude, black, young female, upside down.
Yeah.
You see a lot of blood. You see some sort of a rag wrapped around her neck. You see some bruising around the eyes and head, bad bruising as a matter of fact. And upon a closer look, you see numerous stab wounds all around the heart and chest and back and arms, the upper torso of this individual. She has no identification on her. There's no one around. The entire homicide squad showed up at this scene and they're all looking at you because it's your baby, so to speak.
Right.
This is your job.
Okay.
They're going to help you. They're going to stand by. They're going to do whatever you ask of them to do while they're there. But what's the first thing you would do, Michael? Here you are, day one out on the job. This is what you got. What do you do?
I think there's 2 things. The first thing is I want to find out who she is. The second thing is I want to find out who the perpetrator is who did it and catch him.
Okay.
Or her.
So that's your objective, to catch him.
Yeah.
Catch the person who did it.
Yes.
Right? Your first objective is, very good, you said get her identified.
Right.
And once you get her identified, what's some of the things you can do just by getting her identified? What good is that to you?
What good is it to me?
Yeah, what good does it do you to get her identified?
Well, if we get her identified, maybe we can see how it links with the perpetrator once, and see if it guides us to the perpetrator.
That's one objective. Do you know any more objectives you could get from that, from getting her identified?
That's what I can think of.
Okay. Now I'm your partner.
Right.
Feel free to ask me. What do you think, Har? We got her identified. What can we do with that information?
Okay.
And I would say, well, Michael, you got one good idea there. It could possibly lead us to the perpetrator. But by having her identified now, we want to speak to the family, number one, about notifying them of her demise,
Right.
which is never an easy task. Secondly, we want to speak to the family about her daily life. What does she do? Where did she work? Who are her friends?
Yes.
What siblings can we talk to that know anything about her? When's the last time she was home? In this particular case, we learned from speaking to the family after she was identified. Not yet. Don't put the cart before the horse. Not identified yet. We could identify her right away because no identification in her pocket. We had to rely on her fingerprints. And her fingerprints aren't going to be taken until she gets removed down to the Camden County Medical Examiner's office. And then the crime lab technicians will take her fingerprints, take those prints back to the crime lab and study them and hope that she has a record or there is some trace of her fingerprints being on file. Because if they're not on file, she's still not identified.
Right.
So, right now we got an unidentified body. What's your next step at the scene?
It is an apartment complex, so we would go knock on doors and ask all the people if they know who she is, what she's doing there, etc.
Very good. It's called canvassing the neighborhood.
Okay.
Now, all good homicide detectives know, and since you asked me, because I'm your partner, I would say to you, Michael, what we're doing right now is Voyacod. You ever hear of Voyacod before?
No, sir.
Okay. Voyacod is initials for get off of your ass and knock on doors.
Okay.
That's how murders are solved.
All right.
Talking to the people, getting information. Information is the key to success. Without information, you're not going to solve a case. So keeping that in mind, you knock on doors, you talk to people. Now, there are 16 apartments there along that strip. There are 16 on the other side. That's 32 apartments.
Okay.
You're going to canvass each and every one of those. Can't do it yourself. You have a squad of detectives there with you. So you assign those guys. Okay, you 3 guys are going to do this side, this half. You 3 do the other half. You 3 do this half. And us 3 will do this half. All have notebooks. Each apartment that you visit, did they answer the door? Was there anyone home? If so, what's their name, telephone number, and then the other pertinent information like their address. What apartment do they live in? And you don't limit yourself. What questions do you ask when you get to that door? You're one of the guys canvassing. I come to the door as a person living there. Take it from there, Michael.
Okay, I would introduce myself.
What would you say?
Hi, I'm Detective Michael Cohen. I'm here to investigate a murder that we discovered this morning. Here's a photo of the person. Do you know who she is?
Okay. I'll give you a 5 out of 10 on that. You hit right on the head half of the good questioning technique, but I'm going to give you the other half to make you be a 10. You don't tell them you're from homicide. You don't tell them there was a murder. Because what you're doing, usually, when I hear that, murder, I'm thinking, I ain't getting involved in that shit, right? Or if I'm a suspect, I certainly don't want to speak to you.
Right.
So you don't know who you're talking to at the door.
Okay.
So what you say to them is, good morning, sir. How are you this morning? Yeah, listen, I'm Detective Glemsher, or I'm Detective Cohen. I'm from the Camden County Prosecutor's Office. There was an incident out here last night. We were wondering what time you came home, or what time did you wake up this morning? Did you see or hear anything unusual? Did you see or hear any vehicles in the area that didn't belong here? What, if anything, could you tell me that was unusual that you might have observed yesterday? Now, this person is going to be curious about what happened, but I find 9 times out of 10, they'll never say to you, well, did somebody get killed? Was there a murder? What they might say is what happened.
Right.
And the best thing that you could say to them is, well, we're conducting an investigation right now, and we haven't quite figured out what happened yet, but we're working on it. But something did happen, and we were wondering if you could be of any help at all.
Okay.
Can I come in and talk to you? That's the next thing you want to do. You don't want to try to rush them into just stopping you at the door. Try to get in, sit down with them, get their name. What time did they wake up in the morning? If you know that this happened during the night, and you worked that day, what time did they come home that night? Where did they park? Did they see or hear anything? And you try to get as much information as you can. And what's also important is the person's not home. They don't answer the door. Either they're home, they didn't answer the door, or because they didn't hear you, or they purposely didn't want to answer the door, or they're not home. But you make a note that there was no answer in apartment number 118. When I get that information after you guys all leave, I know that apartment 118 did not respond to the canvas. They weren't home or they didn't answer the door.
Gotcha.
And it's my job now to go back to that another time to catch them at home and try to talk to them. You pick out the ones that didn't answer and you follow up. Always follow up. That one door that you don't go to could hold the keys to solving your case.
Gotcha.
As this case will teach you. Now, the canvas is done. Even the captain of homicide showed up this morning on this case. It was a cold January morning. And everyone left after the body was removed, except who? You. And why didn't you leave?
I was looking for other evidence.
Okay. And you heard that the autopsy would be later on this afternoon. So that gave you a few hours to do some legwork.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Now, you're back on the scene, you're by yourself, everyone left. The autopsy is going to be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. What, if anything, do you do to further this investigation? You have any ideas?
Well, you said that there was some blood on the floor. I guess I would try to see where the blood came from.
Okay.
That'd be one thing. Obviously, walk around and look for any evidence of anything, and just see if I can find anything that makes sense in terms of this. Other than that, I'm not sure.
Okay. I could give you some ideas on what you could do, basically besides nothing, because there's really nothing you can do at that point. The blood trail stopped. You can go back over this yourself. After everyone leaves, you want to take a second look at that. Is there any other blood along this trail that I could find? Maybe if I get a bloodhound dog out here or something, they could maybe follow this trail. That's something you could do, right? Get a bloodhound to see if the bloodhound could trace this to any particular area. Now, our thinking at the time was she dumped here? Obviously dumped. But where was she killed? Was she killed in Cherry Hill, New Jersey? Was she killed in Camden and driven here? Somebody had her car in the parking lot, or a car in the parking lot, in the middle of the night, carried her in the darkness of night, dumped her down the stairwell out here in the suburbs, and took off back to wherever they were from. So we're thinking, a young black girl, half naked, in Runnymede, New Jersey in 1992. Now, I used to live in the Hartford Arms Apartments, and I was a police officer in Runnymede, New Jersey for 12 years before I went to the prosecutor's office. And I knew these apartments, although I didn't know every single person that lived in the apartments, but I lived in that same complex.
Okay.
And I wanted to see the mechanics. When I say mechanics, I'm speaking about what goes on a typical morning at this particular area. who's coming, who's going. So I'm making myself a mental note that I want to be here tomorrow morning and set up and watch this area. Just to see, I don't know what I'm looking for, but just to see how this particular area operates. Who goes to work, where their cars are parked, just looking for nothing, but again, looking for everything. But in this particular case, something very unusual happens, but we're not going to get there yet. We're going to get back to you. Now, you're back on the scene, you're looking around, but you didn't live here before. You don't really know this area. You know, it's all strange and all new to you.
Right.
So one of the things I did, knowing the area and knowing that I could get access to these apartments here, and knowing oftentimes there's empty apartments in here where people are not living, I went to the management office on this particular morning and I said, hey, do you have any vacant apartments across from building, let's call it 118? And they looked on their list and they said, yeah, we have a couple of them. What can we help you with, sir? And I said, well, you know, I'm a detective. I'm down here investigating that situation that happened there. And I'm wondering if I can get the keys to one of those vacant apartments. I just want to go seclude myself out of view and stay in there and, you know, look at a few things. Yeah, absolutely. Here, they give you the keys. So I parked my car and went down to the apartments there and used the key, got in, closed the door, and now I'm standing at the front windows and at the front door, looking outside, observing anything and observing nothing, just looking. Have no idea what I'm looking for. But lo and behold, something happened that turned this investigation on its ear, Michael.
Okay.
I saw a man across the way from apartment 118 stick his head out of the doorway. He looked left, he looked right, tucked himself back into the apartment. I quickly scurried through my notebook and I saw, let me see, apartment 118, canvas. All right, during the canvas, the apartment number 118 was knocked by Joe 40 and no one answered. Okay, now the guy's home. I got to make sure I talk to him. He didn't answer during the canvas, but now he's home.
Yep.
Next thing I know, he pops his head out again, carrying a laundry basket, a white laundry basket. Opens up the trunk of his car, puts the laundry basket in the trunk, gets in the car, and now he's leaving the parking lot. Ooh, what the hell is this? I'm going to follow him.
Okay.
So I jump in my detective car with you. I say, let's go, Michael. We follow this guy down the Clements Bridge Road. He makes a left-hand turn on Clements Bridge Road. He goes to a laundromat there. But he doesn't bring the laundry basket in with him. He himself gets out of the car, goes into the laundromat. He's in there for a second. Comes back out, walks into the car, backs out of his parking spot, drives directly back to his apartment, parks his vehicle, pops the trunk, gets the laundry basket out, and brings it back in the house.
Strange.
Now I'm scratching my head here.
Yeah.
Like, the hell was that?
Yeah,
Right?
strange.
Would you be doing same thing, scratching your head, right?
Yeah.
I got to talk to this guy. So now, I know that that's his car because I just saw him drive it.
Right.
I run his tag number. I get his name. His name was Frank Perdue. And I note that his car was not one of the cars that were seen in the area on the day of the canvass. Earlier that morning, car's not there, but now it is. Very interesting. So, knowing the area again, I go to the apartment, which was an upstairs apartment, and I knock on the door. But this time I knock loud enough that I know he can hear me,
Okay.
and I want to see how long it takes him to come to the door. That's important to me at that point, because Is he avoiding or is he responsive?
Mm-hmm.
I knock on the door pretty sternly, and he doesn't come down. Now I lift up the mail slot. Yo, Frank! It's Harry! Come on down, man. They're getting ready to tow your car. Boom, 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 boom. He comes piling down the steps. Yeah. What's up? What's going on? Right?
Yeah.
Using a little bit of detective trickery there, if you will.
Good.
Okay. Oh, listen, Frank. You don't know me, do you, Frank? He looks at me. He goes, no. I said, I used to work in this town. I was a police officer here for 12 years and running me. And now I'm with the county. And we had an incident out here the other day, and I noticed the detectives knocked at your door, and you didn't answer earlier this morning. And he goes, oh, yeah, I must have been sleeping, because, I worked the night shift at Deluxe Bakery. Well, when he said Deluxe Bakery, I know the whole family from working and running it all those years. I'm friends with the family, as a matter of fact. So I mentioned their names. I said, oh, yeah. I said, yeah, I know those very nice people. Oh, yeah, they're good. I bake during the night. I bake bread and all. So I said, oh, okay. I said, listen, we had a little incident out here last night. I don't tell him anything about it. I just followed him out or anything. I'm keeping that in the back of my head.
Right.
And I said, you mind if I come in and talk to you for a few minutes? Well, after he swallowed a golf ball and hesitated for a second, he tried to act nonchalant and sort of play it off, and he invites me in.
Uh-huh.
Well, I can tell you, from going my first step inside of that foyer, and now I had to walk up a flight of wooden stairs. The top of each stair had a carpet or some type of laminate thing on the top tread part, but the face of each step was bare wood.
Okay.
I visually see, as I'm ascending up the staircase, what looks to be blood dripping down the front of the faces of the staircases, but the blood had dried. And I'm saying to myself, what the hell do we got here? I'm getting excited now. I'm seeing blood in this guy's apartment. Now, I can't prove it's blood yet,
Right.
but I'm going to have it tested for sure. And I think I know what I'm seeing. I had been a cop for a long time by now, and I know what blood looks like, I think.
I would assume you would.
So, I'm not going to say that was blood until I get it tested, because I'm no dummy, but I know it's blood.
Yeah.
I follow the guy up the stairs. He walks to the couch, promptly props his feet up on an ottoman, folds his arms, which is a very defensive posture, by the way, legs and arms folded.
Uh-huh.
You have to look for those types of things, right? You know that as a new detective, right? You were taught that in the police academy, right?
Yes, sir.
Now he's like this on the couch. Well, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm cooking now. I'm getting excited. I got some what looks like blood. I got a guy in a defensive posture. But that's all I have until I turn my head, Michael. I turn my head and I see there was a large cut piece of rug out of the center of the floor, where there's now a different colored rug on top of that cutout area.
Uh-huh.
And then the ottoman is sitting on top of that. And now he's got his feet on it. And I turned my head the other way, because while I was coming up the stairs, I smelled a strong odor of, what would I be smelling? What's a good thing that cleans blood?
I'm not sure.
Bleach.
Okay.
I'm smelling bleach in the air. The distinctive odor of bleach. I look over. There's a bucket with a mop in it, and it's full of dirty, ugly looking water. And it reeks all to be damned of bleach. So I'm talking to him. And as I'm talking to him, I'm getting a little deeper and deeper into why I'm there. And I eventually ask him for consent to search his apartment. I do that for two reasons. One, I want to see his reaction. If he's guilty, he might try to say, no, I'm not going to give you consent, which would give me another indicator,
Right.
not a be-all, end-all.
Right.
But why don't you want to let me search? Don't you want to cooperate in this investigation? Somebody was found murdered outside of your apartment. Don't you want to help? And the other reason is, I know I want to get a full-fledged search warrant for this property, but I'm there right now. And if he gives me consent to search, it's very legal. He signs it off. I can have permission to search.
Okay.
And I have the right to search, which I want, because I'm there right now. I'm ready to go. I want to look around. He gives me consent, signed consent to search. I have it right with me in my briefcase. He signs off on it, and I begin my search. And when I walk into the bathroom area, outside of the bathroom on the floor is a huge clump of black hair that looked like black female's hair. In the bathroom, there's a brush, a comb, a couple of female products, and hanging on the doorknob is a pocketbook. I asked him, whose pocketbook is this, Frank? Yeah, one of my friends, they must have left it here or something. I don't know. I didn't even notice it before. If he noticed it, he may have tried to move it. So he said he didn't know it was there, but I didn't know whether I could believe him or not.
Okay.
But I said, well, who's your friend? He's real, you don't remember names, and you don't remember, and now he's starting to get amnesia on me,
Yeah.
So I open up the pocketbook to find out the identity of whose it is, and I come across a picture of a female, a black female, sort of resembling my victim, but this female in the picture wasn't posing with a caved-in skull and a bludgeoned face and blood all over her. So I couldn't be sure, but I had a name now.
Okay.
I had Benita Lewis, Mechanic Street, Camden, New Jersey. You know Benita? Who's Benita? Oh, yeah, that's one of my friends. Yeah, that's probably her pocketbook, Now he's linking himself to who I think could possibly be our dead victim, because he don't know where she left it here, gone, right? So now I'm getting more involved in a conversation with him. I'm walking into his bedroom and I see a laundry basket on top of his bed.
Okay.
At the end of his bed, the white laundry basket.
Right.
And in this basket, there are some dirty clothes that belong to, obviously, a female. But they're covered with this brown substance. I'm not Sherlock Holmes, but the substance looked like dry blood to me.
Okay.
Female's clothing with dry blood. And I'm taking them out of the bag, looking at them. Of course, at the bottom of this laundry basket, there's one solitary white sock with a blue, red, and white stripe at the top of it. Now, what we didn't get into is the autopsy of our victim, which took place. During that autopsy, the rag that was found in Miss Lewis's mouth and wrapped around her neck was taken out, laid out on the table, and identified as a gym sock, white, with red, white, and blue stripes. You can see them here at the top of it.
Yep.
Exactly like the sock that was in the bottom of this
Okay.
laundry basket.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Oh, now I go into my Columbo mode. Frank's standing there. Obviously, he's crapping his pants. And I say, what's this sock here, Michael? Oh, that's one of my socks. I said, where's the other one? I don't know. You know what, Frank? My wife, I have the same problem. Every time my wife does a batch of laundry and my gym socks are in there, I always get only one sock back. What the hell? Is these washing machines eat socks or what? You know what, Frank? Let me and you, we're going to put our heads together and try to figure this out. Do me a favor, Frank. Take all the, walk around your bedroom, see if you can find that other sock for me, will you? I'm really curious. It's got to be here, right? You didn't sell it. You didn't burn it. It's got to be here, right? Look. He starts looking around like he's looking for this sock. I guess he's praying to God he has another pair somewhere that's going to match that sock. But I know where that other sock is.
Yeah, right.
I made a sketch of it in my notebook, and I noted red, white, blue stripes, sock. Well, I let him search for a while. And I finally said to him, Frank, come here, Frank. Let me talk to you. Come here. I take him in the other room. I said, sit down, Frank. Put my arm on his shoulder. I said, listen. I know where that other sock is, Frank. And so do you, I think. I said, you took this laundry basket to the laundromat. I followed you, Frank. When I was coming up here today, I noticed you didn't answer your door during the camp. Oh, I was sleeping. Okay, you might have been sleeping. But when you did open the door and I came in, I noticed what I believe to be blood on your staircase, Frank. I find ladies' hair on the floor. I find ladies' items in the bathroom. I find ladies' bloody clothes all over your apartment. I said, Frank, what happened to Benita? Now I'm going out on a limb, but I think it's Benita. And he finally says, all right, man. He said, yeah, you got me. He said, man, she was robbing me, man. I said, well, tell me what happened, Frank. He said, well, you know, the long story short is this in a nutshell. That was his prostitute. He worked all week and he was off on the weekends. On the weekends, he would drive to Camden. Matter of fact, he picked Benita up at 3 o'clock in the morning from her home area in Camden and brought her back to his place for the weekend to have sexual favors. He pays her to have sexual favors for him during the weekend. This weekend, he brought her home. They had fun together. They had sex together. And after one of their sessions, he fell asleep on the couch. He says while he was sleeping, something aroused him, and he woke up and he looked, and she was sitting there on the living room floor, rifling through his pants, because he had taken his pants off, but he was wearing long johns under the top and the bottom. And he said, when I saw her going through my pants, trying to rob me, I lost it. So he bludgeoned her in the head with a short bat that he had, and he stabbed her all in the chest and around the heart area. Our victim tells us by these types of wounds, which is called and known as piquerism in the business, that there was some type of love-hate relationship between the victim and the killer, because they went for the area of the heart. That's usually and frequently a sign of love-hate, that the person knew the other person that they killed. So he explained that, you know, I paid a girl. It's not the first time she was here. She's with me a lot. I couldn't believe she was robbing me. So then after I stabbed her up and everything, and, you know, she died. And I didn't know what to do. I panicked. So I kept her here for maybe a while. We think he killed her on Sunday night. And late at night on Monday, wee hours, he carried her after dressing her in his tan overcoat. That was his overcoat. he walked her in his arms down to the end of the staircase and dumped her down the staircase and left her there. I said, Frank, explain to me what your trip to the laundromat was, because I'm curious. You didn't bring any laundry in. He goes, oh. I said, well, he said, what happened there was I went in to check if anybody was in there. I wanted to make sure no one would see me. And then I was going to bring them clothes inside and just leave them in a washer and leave. But when I went into the laundromat, there was a lady in there doing her clothes. And I didn't want her to become a witness later on by saying she saw me at the laundromat bringing clothes. So that made sense. I knew he was being honest with me by telling me that. But if you'll notice, and I hope you're going to learn during your tenure as a homicide detective, always ask the questions why. Why did you do that? Talk to me. After the case is all done, ask them, well, what made you do that? What do you think were some of the reasons? The answers to those questions makes you a better homicide detective, because you begin to see and understand why people do things, which may help you in another case.
What did he tell you?
What's that?
Well, why?
Because she was robbing him. And he didn't think, that was necessary, because he pays her. And now there she was robbing him, and he freaked out. He went nuts on her. So I would say these types of cases, as a brand new detective coming in on them, and I'm not being, criticized or criticizing you or any other detective, but what I'm trying to point out is you can't go into a homicide investigation without any training, cold, because there's so many things that you could miss. And that's why we always lean on our more experienced homicide detectives. That's why you read their reports. It gives you an understanding of the methods that they employ to do various things. And the more you do that, the more you see how it works, the more comfortable you become, and the more inquisitive you become. Would you agree with that? And the more questions you learn to ask for the next time you go out on a job.
Yes.
And so, like in my case, just for the audience's sake, letting you know that I already had 17 years of police experience under my belt. Wow. Hold the phone. This case was in 1992, and I had been a cop since 1972. So that's 20 years experience already under my belt. When I brought you in to tell me what you would do in this case, you had no experience.
Right.
Right? You had no idea.
Right.
But you had an idea from knowing this case and reading about it a little bit. It would give you a little bit of insight of where we're going with it. But my point is, if I was day one involved in a case like this, you better believe I'd be leaning on my more experienced homicide detectives for answers to my many, many, many questions. But since I had 20 years experience already, everyone left the scene with me. I knew that this was my job and I had to handle it, come hell or high water. And that's your baby. And that stays with you even after you solve it, because you deal with the family. And here it is, 92, 2002, years and years later, this is one of my podcasts. I still remember Benita Lewis. I still remember her name, and I still remember the atrocities that she went through. So it's something you never forget. You may not remember each and every case, but you never truly forget them. Every victim is special. Every investigation is meaningful. So, Michael, is there anything you'd like to add that you think you want to talk about in listening to some of the podcasts that you were listening to? What do you think? What do you think of today's interview, for instance?
Well, obviously you were very thorough. I wasn't. I'm learning from you, obviously. I guess there's a little bit of luck involved. The fact that you were in the opposite apartment and you see him stick his head in and out and then go out with the laundry basket. I mean, but you knew what to do with it. No, I can't think of anything else.
Okay. Now, this coming week, I think I mentioned it to you, I'm having a guest speaker come in who actually worked the Philadelphia Homicide Division for many years. He retired from there and then came to work at the Camden County Prosecutor's Office Homicide Division. And his name is Kenneth Curcio. One hell of a detective. He actually worked on the infamous case of Gary Michael Heidnick, aka Brother Bishop. Some of you may have watched The Silence of the Lambs. Well, Heidnick was a serial killer, a serial rapist, and a torturer who also was a cannibal. He ate his victims after cooking them and fed the remains of some of his victims to his living captives that he had chained to pipes in his torture den, which was in the basement of his home in Philadelphia. He portrayed himself as Brother Bishop. In the movie Silence of the Lambs, he was portrayed as Buffalo Bill, the serial killer. Make sure you tune in. It's going to be a fascinating interview with Kenneth Curcio, homicide detective, both Philadelphia and Camden County, coming next week. This is Detective Sergeant Gavel, First Class, signing off. See you next time.